People are constantly saying don't compare yourself to others. That's wrong. Do compare yourself to others. Stay tuned. I'm going to tell you how to use it to pull yourself forward and to grow. You can use comparing yourself to somebody else in a very positive manner to help pull yourself forward, to accomplish your goals, and to grow. You can. And here's how. When you chart your course, identify someone that has already accomplished what it is that you want to accomplish, whatever your goal is. Say your goal is you want to go to college. You don't know how difficult that is for some people, especially for adults that may have children that say, oh, I'm too old now. College isn't something that I could do. Yes, it is. Chart your course. Identify someone, and you don't even have to open your mouth. They don't even have to know that you are watching them. Find someone who has accomplished that goal, has in the same situation that you're in, a similar situation, has kids, went to a local college or an online school, how they took their classes, did they have certain nights that they took classes, did they only take classes in the day and take time off from work, did they go from full-time to part-time? How was it that they accomplished that goal? Then use that to chart your course. I don't know, say something you want to do is you want to start an online coaching business. That's hot right now, right? Everybody is a coach, a life coach, a business coach, somebody that can help you maybe do your first Instagram live, like my friend Angela, or somebody that can help you somebody that can help you save money or get out of debt, like my friend Anita. I've interviewed all these people on my YouTube channel, so if you want to know more about them, please check out those videos. But you can use comparison to pull yourself forward. So let's say, hey, I want to do an Instagram live. I want to start a life coaching business. How do I get that done? Find the person that you admire most that is accomplishing that goal. A life coach, a business coach. Go to their social media and scroll down. Nobody gets it right the first time. Everybody has to start somewhere. Scroll down and follow. Look at the trend. Look at the topics that they covered. Look at the length of their videos. And then start to look at when they begin to grow, right? That's a trend. You want to see when they started doing their solo videos where it's just them and they're talking to the camera, versus when they started sharing testimonials, or when they started sharing the videos where, you know, they'll be hosting a Zoom or they'll be coaching somebody. All of that takes time to build. You can just continue and continue and continue. Once you see these trends and you can figure out what their milestones were, or what I like to call their key performance indicators, or their key pivot indicators, because when people pivot, it's either because it's something that they're doing that is successful and they want to scale it, or it's something that they're not doing that they want to start doing that's going to continue to help them grow. Pivots are very, very telling performance indicators. Once you find those and you can chart those, and what I mean by chart, dart to dart to dart, you can write 3 or 4 of them down and see how they went from the solos to maybe coaching one person, to maybe showing a Zoom of all the people, to next maybe even holding their own conference. And that first conference, don't spike the small beginning. That first conference may have been 10, 15 people. That first conference may have just been a breakfast, an hour, 2 hours, but it's the start. And then once you get that momentum and you continue to grow and continue to grow, before you know it, you're hanging out that hashtag life coach. Comparing yourself to people can be a very positive thing. I have used it my entire life. Let me say, when I first moved to DC, I knew nobody here. Okay? Nobody. I didn't stay. When I first moved here, a lot of you know that story. Let me back up just a second, okay? I was not living in the DC area. I was like 3-4 states away, okay? I got tired of living in the area that I was in. I was in the mountains. The time had expired. If you know anything about living in the mountains, there is nothing. I mean, don't get me wrong. The aesthetics are priceless. It's beautiful living in the mountains. But when you have to drive an hour and a half to get your hair done, buy hair care products, hang out with friends, when there is nothing in the mountains but that job, it gets old quick. So when it came time for me to pick up and roll out, I looked at a map, said, where would I like to move to? Because remember, single, never married, no kids. There is nothing and nobody to tell me that I had to consider. I didn't have to consider good schools. I didn't have to, all I had to consider was my likes and dislikes. I looked at a map, said, where would I like to move to? The world is my oyster. I picked DC. Didn't know anybody that lived in DC at the time. I knew a friend that had a friend that lived in DC. And this was like an aunt and uncle couple. I wasn't the first one to go through to move to the DC area. When she called them and said, hey, Nita wants to move to DC, can you help her out? They were like, yeah, tell Nita, come on. Didn't know who Nita was. Got there, stayed with them for about 90 days, found a job. All I had was a resume. Found a job, had gone on a number of interviews, nothing stuck, because I want to give you the true picture, right? What we see at the end of somebody's life is just those high points of how to get from one place to another. But I want to share some of those dips and valleys with you. It took me 90 days. 90 days was not a plan. I started going on interviews the same week that I arrived in DC, but it didn't fold out that way. Once I started going on interviews and nothing was sticking, I wasn't getting it. What I did get was I started temping. I got picked up by a temp company, and that temp company, people started calling and requesting me because I was on time, I was articulate, I was attentive, I was customer service oriented. I'm humble enough to be customer service oriented. I can go from being the person that is speaking at the conference to actually being the person that is checking people in at registration or serving people napkins during the dinner time. I could do that humbleness. I could go from being the one who is checking people in at the conference to actually being the one who is going around table to table serving water, right? Volunteer organizations need volunteers. You never know where you will be able to serve and where you will be able to be celebrated all in the same space. But if you're not humble enough, then you may miss that blessing. You may miss that. Always be humble enough. Because when you're comparing yourself to somebody else, you're comparing yourself to somebody who is a few steps ahead of you. So then when you get to that point, don't forget to reach back, because somebody may be watching you that you don't know about, and help to pull that person forward. And that may be in, hey, being the person to go around and refilling the water glasses at the table while they are taking notes of the other speaker, somebody else who is speaking after you. Don't ever be too big not to be humble. I'll give you another example of something that I did comparing myself to people, the people that were a little farther out ahead of me. Okay, we talked about being a life coach. We talked about moving to DC. Let's talk about buying a house. Okay, that wasn't something that I ever saw anybody do. My entire youth, childhood, college, growing up, everybody that I knew, right, lived in the house that they lived in when I was born. Okay. So I never saw anybody actually go through that process. Well, fast forward in my life, okay, I'm in my, 20s, 30s, and I want to buy a house. I see that a house can be a good investment. I see that a house can be something that is stable. And growing up in the South, those morals and those values, because my family was one that believed that, you had to be married to do these things. It's not something that a woman could do by herself. Knew that wasn't true. Seen too many women do it. That is one space in time. Because yes, at one time, a woman could not get a loan for a home. In American history, yes, that is true. At one time in history, the woman couldn't have a checking account unless a man was on it. Okay, yeah. So for my elders, that was a time period that they lived in. However, that is not applicable to us today. Buying the house. I watched people whom were going through the process of looking for a home, selecting a home, actually securing the loan to buy the house, and then actually going to settlement and moving in. I watched each step. Okay, I checked my community for first-time home buyer classes. First of all, going into the class, I told myself there's no commitment here, right? Because we're not educated enough, we don't know enough to be able to jump on a good thing or to make a decision. We are here to learn. That's first. There's the decision. We are here to learn. So when you go to the first time home buyers process and something shows up and it sounds too good to be true and oh, it's a wonderful thing and interest rates are going up, don't move. Learn first. Prepare first. Then make your decision. So when I was in these classes and I saw people that were with realtors, some were not with realtors, and I listened to them week after week tell their story, even went with a couple of them when they went to go look at homes, what neighborhoods they were looking at, what type of questions they asked. I made notes of all of that. Mental notes for me. If you need to write it down, please do. Made notes of all of that. And then that's how I charted my course. Broke the DC area down and looked at, what are the good areas in DC for me to live in? I may not need to live near good schools. I may prefer to live near the arts versus living near good schools. I may prefer to live near the subway or downtown, or maybe I'm a suburb type of person. Whatever is of interest to you is what you put on this list. And then as they begin to ask questions, if it's open and the opportunity presents itself, ask your question. You don't have to be the one that's at the table to ask the question. Then I also got to look at the documents that they were signing, right? I didn't get to look at their specific document, but I could go online and Google what's a HUD-1, right? A settlement statement. I got to Google what's the settlement process. Actually writing down and charting the course of how someone else got there, and then taking the steps that I could take to get there. Pulling myself forward, growing, right? Then the time came for me to actually make decisions. I'd already asked the questions, I'd taken the classes, I'd selected a neighborhood, I'd found something in that neighborhood that was, one, not only of interest to me, but affordable to me. That's very important. Went to settlement, bought the house. You can use comparing yourself to other people to pull yourself forward. If you've ever used pulling yourself forward, or if you find this content interesting, please let me know in the comments. If you have any questions, be sure to just drop them in the comments and I will respond.